control somewhere down the line. 666 Fifth Avenue, just part of their symbolism. So Soros acquired Lucent through Nokia in 2016 in order to move the beast chip forward in the European Union in case the United States plans didn't work out for whatever reason. This is how Soros operates time and time again. Anon then discovers that the 5G spectrum ties to everything. As with everything I look at, a lot of the research seems claimed. You have to really dig deep to find evidences. As with Soros, this was my first time looking really deep into his life and into some of his successes and also business ventures. They say that Soros can change the entire economy of a country just by how he handles the finances around that country.
Traders in Hong Kong followed suit, triggering a financial crisis that plunged much of Asia into a depression.
In the last 2 years, you've been blamed for financial collapse of Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, and Russia.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Are you that powerful?
No, I think there's a great
And
misunderstanding.
when you look at The Alchemy of Finance, a book written by Soros, reading the mind of the market, there are a few things that stand out. A few very strange things. Down through the foreword, not much other than praising him from Paul Tudor Jones II. But under the preface, things start to get, let's say, strange is the only way to put it.
The Prime Minister of Malaysia
Yes.
said that the region spent 40 years trying to build up its economy, and along comes a moron like Soros with a lot of money, and it's all over. He called you a criminal.
The first sentence, 7 eventful years have passed since The Alchemy of Finance was first published. My investment fund, the Quantum Fund, has continued to flourish. Shareholders have enjoyed average annual gains of 35.8% in the last 7 years, in spite of a setback in the crash of 1987. It goes on to further detail many of Soros's financial endeavors, but really it gives you a deep understanding of the mind of Soros when this was written, and this was written when he was in his prime. Quantum Fund has also spawned a number of offspring, some of which are doing even better than the goose that is laying the golden eggs. We decided to distribute a portion of our earnings to shareholders, either in cash or in shares. As a result, we now manage 7 funds with a combined equity of over $10 billion. That's not the surprising part. Digging around even further on this book, and this is nothing super recent, but more like it's been overlooked, let me give you a few key quotes. It will come as no surprise to the reader that when I admit that I have always harbored an exaggerated view of my self-importance, to put it bluntly, I fancied myself as some kind of god or an economic reformer, or even better, a scientist like Einstein. My sense of reality was strong enough to make me realize that these expectations were excessive, and I kept them hidden as a guilty secret. As I made my way in the world, reality came close enough to fantasy to allow me to admit my secret, at least to myself. I have been fortunate enough to be able to act out some of my fantasies. Also, this one is very important. If truth be known, I carried some rather potent messianic fantasies with me from childhood, which I felt I had to control, otherwise they might get me in trouble. He speaks a lot of these fantasies, a lot about how he had to control these fantasies, Let me give you a couple more quotes that will further cement the point I'm trying to make. Soros moves on to say writings like this, quote, exposes me in a way I never dared to expose myself before, but I feel I can afford it. My success in business protects me. When asked about this very issue, Soros responded, quote, it is a sort of disease when you consider yourself some kind of God, the creator of everything, but I feel comfortable about it now since I've began to live it out.
I am basically there to make money. I cannot and do not look at the social consequences of what I do.
So if you remember back from my original Fifth Avenue post, we quickly realized that the anonymous researchers were taking this building, some of the companies that work there, what those companies have created, where they moved to, and what they've done since then, and the billion-dollar elites that have funded those companies since, and they've connected that to other forms of technology. One specifically that we're going to look at right now is 5G. I think it's very important for me to weigh in really quick. The thing I just played to you of George Soros and the book that he wrote, all of that would fill 5 videos. I'm going to put more out on that topic very soon. But since we're following Fifth Avenue, I'm at least going to delve down a little bit into the 5G technology, because I've been looking at a lot of videos that claim it's dangerous, and I ask myself that question: is 5G technology dangerous, or would it be a good thing to move the internet wireless, faster, all over the planet, or even broadcasted down from space? So as far as I can tell, just from an initial look, and like I said, this is just the first initial kind of baseline on this, there are a lot of conspiracy-oriented podcasts, broadcast, YouTube channels that have delved into this. Out of all of that, there is a reoccurring list. It's kind of strange. It almost seems like everybody's copying this same list, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. I'm just telling you what I found. So this list starts with 11 reasons to be concerned, the dangers of 5G. Thousands of studies, it claims, links to low-level wireless radio frequency radiation exposures to a long list of adverse biological effects. I'd love to have that cited, but it's okay. DNA single and double strand breaks. Basically, from what I've read up on so far, main concern is that this radiation is mostly absorbed in our skin. Let me go further, I'll come back to that. Oxidative damage, disruption of cell metabolism, increased blood-brain barrier permeability, melatonin reduction, and as you know, melatonin is a natural chemical released in your brain to aid with sleep. Disruption to brain glucose metabolism, how your brain breaks down certain foods and sugars that it takes in. Generation of stress proteins. Let's also not forget, this website claims that in 2011, the World Health Organization classified radio frequency radiation as a possible to be carcinogen. More recently, the 25 million National Toxicology Program concluded that radio frequency radiation of the type currently used by cell towers can cause cancer. They say, where does 5G fit into this? Given that 5G is set to utilize frequencies above and below existing frequency bands, 5G sits in the middle of all of this, but the tendency is for 5G to utilize the higher frequency bands, which brings its own concerns. A denser soup of electrosmog. The site claims we're going to be bombarded by high frequencies at a low short-range intensity, creating a more complicated, denser soup of electrosmog. I guess that's the word they use. The biggest concern is how these new wavelengths will affect the skin. The human body has been 2 million to 4 million sweat ducts. I'm not going to read all of this, but they say the analysis of penetration depth show that more than 90% of the transmitted power is absorbed in the epidermis and dermis layer. Also, they say it has effects on the eyes, the heart, the immune system. It affects cell growth. It has effects on bacterial resistance and on plant health. They say, think about GMOs on steroids. Now, that's one page. So other research says innocent animals have already been the victims of testing to see these effects on living cells. Extrapolating the results from animal testing to humans isn't straightforward, but the results nonetheless raise some red flags. Perhaps most significantly, a U.S. National Toxicology Program study noted that male rats exposed to RFR for 9 hours a day for over 2 years developed rare forms of tumors in the brain and heart, and rats of both sexes developed DNA damage. There have been many other studies to claim that the radiation we already receive is very harmful. What if you multiplied that by 1,000? That's the entire thing behind this. That's where a lot of people get their worries from. So Fifth Avenue takes us on a journey starting at 666 Fifth Avenue, New York, and leading to the European Union, George Soros, and 5G technology. But we can't forget that it mentions the mark of the beast. When looking deeper to see Soros' connection to 5G, Fifth Ave did some of the work in showing his buyout of Nokia, his involvement with AT&T, and how AT&T does fit into all of this. Even if you take a look into not anything too recent, but there are a lot of countries, because of the EU funding 5G networks and making sure that they get built in their areas. We do have some evidence to show Verizon and AT&T and other giants in this industry are being funded by Soros. We remember the clip of what Soros said earlier. Is there anything else to find here? Well, I do have a little bit for you in my next video, but I'm also going to move a little bit closer to the role that AT&T plays, the operating system I mentioned in the last video that Lucent Technologies produced, and maybe we'll understand Soros a little more after we're done.